Hello and welcome to the Genuine Learning Blog. My name is Melissa Galasso, and today we're going to talk about the 2024 CPA Exam Blueprints. Now, we've talked about the proposed blueprints in the past on this blog, but today we're going to talk a little bit about what feedback the AICPA received regarding the blueprints and ultimately what ended up happening. And so the final blueprints, again, were presented, they were voted on in December 2022, but they were issued in January of 2023 to help as part of CPA Evolution Right, which was the goal to modernize the CPA exam. So they were trying to figure out what are the skills that new CPAs are going to be, newly licensed CPAs, are going to need in a very, very different, world as we move forward. And so this is a joint effort between NASBA and the AICPA to figure out what are the skills and competencies that newly licensed CPAs are going to need. And as you can probably imagine, periodic evaluation of a practice analysis has always been done, right? The CPA exam has evolved many times. I took the old pen and paper, it moved to electronic, right? We have had constant change in this area. And so I think this is something that is just part of it. It's obviously trying to make sure it's accurate, it's reliable, it's relevant, it's current, right? So that's what they're trying to do. So ultimately, they decided to retain the core and discipline, right? So we're going to have four total exams taken by these students, but they're going to be 3 core and 1 discipline of their choice. And so they can pick between auditing and attestation, financial accounting and reporting, tax and regulation. So very similar to what we have today, which is audit, FAR, and reg. So the titles actually aren't changing, but the topics in them are. So there's been movement between various items, because this is going to be core, meaning what everyone needs to know. But then in the disciplines, this is where we're going to take a deeper dive. So the depth really comes in the discipline. The core is going to have the breadth of the exam. And so the discipline is going to take us deeper into business analysis and reporting, which includes both financial reporting as well as governmental accounting. It also has ISC, which is information systems and controls, which is a very heavy IT area, a lot of the MIS types of items. And then for those who want to do a deeper dive into tax compliance and planning, which includes some financial planning type items. And so everyone takes the same 3 core, and then they pick 1 discipline. However, you won't know the discipline that they selected. So that is not going to be differentiated on their CPA, and their license will not indicate what they took. So if you just know someone's a CPA, you wouldn't know their discipline from their CPA exam or from anything in respect. A CPA is a CPA regardless of the discipline that they selected. And so as you can see here, all of the exams are back to 4 hours. We have seen 3-hour versions, we've seen 3.5, we've seen 4. So all of the exams are 4 hours. They are retaining multiple choice and what we call task-based simulations, or what we call TBSs. And where, this is the more practical application. You'll notice that there's a wide range of multiple choice questions between them, depending on the content, right? So if you think about FAR, a lot of those, determinations of journal entries and things like that require a lot more time than you would have in sort of making a selection of a definition, for example. And so you see the kind of spacing out between how much time is being allotted here. And then what is the split? And so for the most part, it is 50-50 between multiple choice and task-based simulations, with the exception of the IT section. But as I mentioned, we talked about this historically when they first put out the proposal to make these changes, but they have updated since we last discussed. And so based on feedback, people are like, well, hey, what about ERISA, right? A lot of newly licensed CPAs work on employee benefit plans. We need to make sure that the appropriate level of content is being addressed in that section of the audit. So they updated that. As you're probably aware, we're moving away from quality control to quality management. However, that's not going to be effective until 2025. And so they kind of changed some of the language around quality, retaining what the intent was, but making it clear based on PCOB and AICPA changes that are coming down the pike there. In terms of when we look at client acceptance, they added communication with predecessor auditors. We do have a new audit standard in that area, so that makes sense as well. And then sampling methodology was added, and we'll talk a little bit about the tasks and how these are written out. And then it sounded like they just kind of missed this. It was intended, but the tested details seem to be missing, so they added it back. Sad to see this, but in FAR, they did remove the direct method of cash flow. They do not have to be able to create a cash flow statement using the direct method. That makes me sad because one, governments require the direct method. And so it's much harder if you've never seen the direct method to move to the direct method. And two, we've been trying to encourage the adoption of the direct method because it's easier for users to understand for years, but doesn't want to seem to go away. So that was removed. Language around nonprofit, when we have donations, we use the word contribution for accounting purposes. The concepts of the different types of restrictions was added in there. They updated some of the coverage related to my least favorite topic on the CPA exam, which is accounting for income taxes. Not an income tax person myself, but this is a very interesting area of accounting. And they added asset retirement obligations into FAR, so you can kind of see that. On the reg side, not as many changes. They added some fringe benefits to the income calculation and also addressed and more clarified the reporting for foreign bank accounts requirements. So kind of a very, very small update to reg. BAR, which is the more detailed reporting, financial analysis type of exam. They revised some language around data and technology. They added reportable segments. So for those of you who love dealing with segment reporting, there are some proposals on the FASB side of the house, but that is an SEC topic that they've added back in. And then they updated some of the accounting related to state and local government, so the GASB side. This is the only area, and they got a lot of feedback about that. Some people don't believe it should be on the exam at all. Some people felt it like it should be in the core because everybody should be able to do that. Some people wanted them to add federal government accounting. They decided not to do that. It's never been on the exam. It's not on the current exam, so they kind of declined that option. But, state and local government accounting is definitely a hot topic. For the ISC section, they clarified their regulation section. I think it was a very broad area that people wanted to understand the exact application there. Change management, big element in this area, so they added that as well as threats and attacks. And then they updated TCP for international tax treaties. They revised some language around compliance and tax planning. They added some more personal financial planning related to estates and talked more about revocable trusts and involuntary conversion. So some additional items put into that section. So the way the blueprints work is they're laid out to help somebody understand when they're, studying for the exam, what they need to do. So I'm just looking at one area of one exam. So in this area, we're looking at AUD, which is our audit and attestation standard. And so this is where you would go for your attestation, your auditing requirements. And so area one is ethics, personal responsibilities and general principles, which is kind of helpful because this is, the independence requirements, et cetera. And so you can see the topic is the first piece. So they have the letter, which is ethics, independence, and professional responsibility. So that's sort of the topic within the ethics. And then we have the AICPA code. They have some PCOB, and then they have the Department of Labor and Government Accountability Office. So Yellow Book, right? So those are the different players that they are considering ethics for. And you'll notice that then within there, they look at the depth of the skill that you need, right? So you just need to remember, right? Maybe a definition, maybe be able to understand certain items. So remembering and understanding is the lowest level you can get in terms of learning, right? Can you remember a definition? Can you understand, right? Very, very low requirements here. We're not asking you to be able to apply the knowledge. We're simply asking for you to be able to remember, identify as a kind of a key learning objective when we look at those items. Application takes it up a notch. That's when we're going to actually take a definition and apply it to a set of items, right? So this requires a little bit more skill. And so you can kind of see there the basics of understanding the rules versus applying the principles in the rules, right? So they take it up a notch in there. Analysis is even higher level. And then above that is evaluation. And typically the evaluation is like evaluating evidence, right? So those higher level thinking skills that we would be asking of students. And so you'll notice on the core, right, that we're going to be asking for those more remembering, understanding, application, because we're asking everybody to be able to do it. And then we'll get to some of the depth later. So each of those then has a related task within it. And so these are the things that they're going to ask. And so this is how we build studying for the CPA exam. So all of the providers who offer a CPA exam review take this blueprint and then figure out, okay, well, what are the multiple choice? What are the topics? How are we going to teach this? What are the mnemonics we're going to teach? How are we going to get this organized? And then their textbooks reflect the blueprint. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of an understanding about what our next generation of CPAs are going to be asked about. I definitely recommend that you take a look at the blueprint, especially those of you who are hiring. And if you happen to be an instructor, awesome. We would highly recommend that you take a look as well, especially if you're responsible for ensuring these kids are getting what they need in school in order to pass the CPA exam. All right, so that's a wrap on this week's blog, and I hope to see you on a future blog. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.